Thank you all for being here. We are in the midst of an ongoing series in transformational leadership, conversations with leaders in a variety of fields touched by the life of faith. We're so pleased to have Chris Sawyer with us tonight. Chris practiced law with the Atlanta firm of Alston & Bird for 35 years, specializing in corporate and real estate and environmental law, working with wealthy individuals and with boards of directors on issues of institutional development, deal in financial structures, strategic matters, and management of their legal needs. He serves as the chair of the Yale Divinity School Dean's Advisory Council and is on the Yale School of Forestry's Leadership Council and is a member of the National Advisory Council of the Land Trust Alliance. He's on the boards of trust for public land, both in Georgia and nationally. Among his other engagements, Chris has served as national chairman of the Trust for Public Land, on the global board of the Urban Land Institute in Washington, D.C., on the National Land Trust Alliance, as chair of the National Real Estate Council of the Nature Conservancy. He's credited with the distinction of having placed more land in public trust than any other environmental advocate. Mr. Sawyer designed and you can't shake your head. It's designed and co-taught a course that's similar to the program we're doing this weekend at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies last year with Dean Peter Crane. That was a semester-long program, and we're doing all of that in 2 days. So we're moving along. This spring, he'll begin a class at the University of Georgia's School of Ecology. He has many awards to his credit, including a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Chattahoochee Nature Center and special commendation by the Georgia House of Representatives for his contributions to the state of Georgia, and the Justice Robert Benham Award from the State Bar of Georgia for public service. Chris, we're so grateful that you're here with us tonight.
Thank you, Bill. It's a pleasure.
Our plan is I'm going to ask you a few questions, invite you to respond to those a little bit, and then we'll have a broader conversation. So I hope that you'll all have questions to ask Chris, either about his own work or about the broader questions, the broader issues that we're addressing. And the first, and really maybe the core here, is that this is a change of pace for even this short-lived transformational leadership program. We have been in the months past engaging questions of justice in leadership in Black Lives Matter, questions of leadership in churches with a couple of different pastors, churches in times of crisis, churches in times of transition. But we've invited you to come and talk about organizational structure, that sexy thing, organizational structure, as a form of leadership. So how is it that organizational structure has anything at all to do with transformational leadership?
Well, the quick, easy answer is the ones that are led best structurally are the ones that do the best over time. So, when you study the crisis managers and all of that, it's wonderfully inspirational, and there's a lot to learn. And when you're in your own crises, running an organization or being part of an organization, having that background and that perspective is invaluable. But the bottom line is that probably 95% of the leadership is just in running a program or the institution day in and day out. And there's structures to it. If you do it right, which means setting it up properly, having the right idea, being able to articulate that mission as perfectly as you possibly can so it communicates a lot, and then executing a plan that makes sense in and out, and then having the right people surrounding you in every way is huge. And again, maybe this makes the point too closely, but I look at where we are in the faith community, broadly spoken, and somebody once told me there is no faith community. There are all these communities within something called faith, and that's probably right. But if you look at the decline in Europe and North America with it, there are lots of reasons for that. But I would argue that a lot of that, as it relates to both the church leadership and denominational leadership, is that the structural issues, the board management of those entities has not been what it should be, and the mission hasn't been followed, and it's just been poorly done. And where else do you see a 40% drop in membership and participation over a relatively short period of time? except in places that aren't run well. And if you tie that also to the fact that most all of our divinity schools don't teach us how to run a church, I mean, think about it. And, you know.
Well, it's been nice having you. Thanks so much.
Well,
this is kind of hitting close to home.
Well, it's meant to hit close to home, but it's also, I think, a great opportunity. I mean, I think one of the things that we at YDS, and I graduated from here in '75 with an MDiv, came back and went on the advisory council in '96, I believe, and I think I've chaired it since '02. And so I know a little something about this place, and we're very fortunate. We actually are quite strong on a relative basis, but there's problems out there in the real world, not only at the church level, but in the seminary world. And we're in a position that we can do a whole lot of good right now, leveraging some of those disappointments and trying to make something better out of that world. But it's also an incredible opportunity for leadership for YDS. And by the way, having served as the chair of Rick Levin's external search committee for our dean, where I ended up talking to probably, I was on the phone for a lot of time, 80 to 100 hours, and talked to denominational leadership, but also talked to Jewish leaders and Catholic leaders across the country, and I just learned a whole lot. But one of the things I learned is that they're all looking to us. When I say all, maybe I'm overspeaking, but not much. The progressive center of mainland faith communities, they look to YDS for leadership of this because they know we're adrift and that we're looking for the way forward. And so I think that what we need to do is think hard about that as we look at what we're doing at YDS, and rather than look at it as a burden or something that's totally negative or that it's worrisome beyond belief, is that we need to look at it as an opportunity and go seize that opportunity. And there are structural issues that are involved. So
let's talk about that. So you took a semester-long course and boiled it down into 2 days. Now I want you to take a 2-day course and boil it down into 5 or 6 quick lessons. What will it mean? What does it mean to have organizational structure that would serve the church and not-for-profits in effective, living ways?
Well, there are faith and leadership, which is your topic, and you can look at it the way I think that most of the sessions look at it, and that's we've got a leader who's faith-driven, okay, and that's faith and leadership. I read that and I see that, I understand it. Totally agree. That's one reason, I'm sorry, I just hit my mic, I apologize. But I mean, I'm driven by faith, at least I try to be driven by faith in a lot of my work, including being right here tonight. But I look at the people that run these institutions and are congregants and participants in them that are making valuable contributions. I look at all of them as leaders. And so figuring out how to do that properly, and you say, well, Chris, what are the issues? I mean, how would different leadership, well, like real estate in the church community. One of the things I've heard quite often about is the burden of the real estate that the denomination communities have. And the reason is that, we've, rather than really paying attention to mission, we've tried to maintain a lot of real estate that was built and constructed as churches, church buildings, church-related facilities during the agrarian movement. And, that's over. And so we're supporting a lot of structure out there that we don't need to be structuring. And not only that, we're calling on our successful churches to help pay for the ones that are struggling. Well, one of the problems of dealing with the faith community and things, you can get soft pretty quickly because you're trying to think of the most graceful, right thing to do. And I'm all for that. But I also know that if we're not protecting the long haul, that we're done. And it's the same thing with personnel. We have so many needs in the world, including in the faith community for leadership in the pulpit and our programs and all that, but we need to get really good people doing it. And so the question is, are our boards, and I was, by the way, clerk of the session of Trinity Presbyterian Church, where we were fortunate to have David Bartlett as our theologian in residence and totally upgraded our program. It was fantastic. But you look at the personnel decisions, and do we have the right people running these things? Are we bringing the right people in to help us do that? And those are very tough questions, but if you want to protect the mission of what we're about for the long haul, you have to make them. You just have to have the right people there. And that was a recurrent theme I heard, was that, we had a lot of people that were there, but, that all of who, goodwill, well-intentioned, trying hard, all those things, but that we needed different types of leadership. Well, those are all structural issues to me. And, there's another variation on the theme, unless you want to talk more about that, but is that, I look at, and maybe it's because I've been up here too long, but I love this place, and I love the fact that we have 45 to 50 denominations and faith traditions. That's my church. I like that, and it's inspired me, and I've learned so much because of the diversity of that, and I wish everybody in the world would have had the same opportunity I've had. So I really like it, and appreciated it so much. But I do think part of the, when I look at, I'm looking at a number of structural issues that we as a community, I call them structural issues because they go right to the risk of what faith is all about, from at least the capacity to pursue faith-related activities, which is everything, by the way. It's a limit. And, so for instance, as an example, language. I deal with this within the environmental movement all the time. It's ridiculous to me. And yet I'm as guilty of it as anybody I know. And that is, we don't ever talk about, literally up until certainly Francis and maybe before, nobody talked about the environment as a faith issue. It's just, the statement is wrong. In fact, as an aside, that was written in a newspaper article a decade ago, and it said Roosevelt and Jefferson. I said, you're out of your mind. And they said, no, we fact-checked it. And I said, well, you need to get a new fact-checker. Not even, my mother even wouldn't say that. And she's proud of her children. And the one that's more fitting for this was that I was asked to speak to the Rotary Club in Cobb County, which is Newt Gingrich, Tom Price, and a lot of other ultra-right conservative people. And the Rotary Club's right there in the heart of it. But the fellow that introduced me was a friend and really didn't know much about my work other than I was involved with conservation. But he said he's a graduate, there's 350 people, he's a graduate of the Yale Divinity School, and he does conservation work all American. In fact, he is the Billy Graham of conservation. I said, I'm out of here. That's as good as you can do as a Cobb County.
You say amen.
Amen. If I say one more word, I'm gone. It's not going to be good or bad. It's going to be bad. But anyway, one of the realities that I've really struggled with and have learned is that our faith language, God, Jesus, Christian, all the big words have been appropriated and taken over by the far right. And so it means that we're not allowed to talk about that publicly because there are too many people that find that offensive. And that's a problem. And we need to learn how to deal with that. And that means educating all of us. You can start with me. And I'll tell you that right now. You can start with me. But we need to learn how to do that. And it's not just to market Christian faith. In fact, I find that sort of, I won't say reprehensible, but that to me is not what it's about. It's not about triumphalism. But if we're not talking about it, and I see the work that a lot of you all described tonight in our small group session that you're already about, it's terrific. But if we can't tell our friends, much less people that we don't know, that this is faith-driven and why it is and why you feel that way about it, then you're taking away from them the insight of its power. You're depriving them of that which brings you joy and motivates you to act. And that is a huge problem. That's just a huge problem. Another word I think that's been appropriated, not just by the right, but by our actions as minister, I think it's now, sadly is sort of perceived as a somewhat suspect identifier, because we've had the abuse problems and the other issues. And also we've, over time, and certainly it's got a lot of historical baggage here, but, we've put the ministers up on this pedestal and they're all human. So there've been problems with that, and people see it, and it's the same value question that we talked about earlier today in our class, is that, the values that used to support that elevation, a lot of people don't see anymore. And, but I also think one of the answers to that is that we recognize that we maybe ought to put more emphasis, combining the two issues, on the minister without a shingle. My uncle is a graduate of this school, died a couple years ago, but Carl was about 5'4" and taught little guy, did not drive, did not like using the telephones, did not have a TV, married to my dad's wonderful sister. But he taught Greek at Wake Forest for 35 years. And Carl, I don't think he had a class with more than 12 students in it. PhD from Duke, but an MDiv from here. And but he'd also, we'd talk every time we were together, and he was, beloved is saying too little, but Carl was the type of guy. Every time you'd leave him, he'd grab me and hug me, and he'd look me right in the eye, and he'd say, "Chris, I wish you as much happiness as a thinking person can have." Thank you, Uncle Carl. But the point I was going to make is Carl did not go into the pulpit ministry, did not go into the ordained ministry. He said, "I am a minister without a shingle," and that was one of his favorite phrases. And when Carl died 6 months after his death, I hadn't been in the classroom in 15 years. There were 350 people at his funeral. I don't think he had more than 20 students per semester in his class. But it was because of the power of what he did with people, and the love he showed and could share, and the motivation and inspiration he could give. And so somehow or another we need to solve these problems. And to me, they're structural issues. I mean, I think that, and you can come up with a better name that's less clinical, but on the other hand, I think that's a huge problem for us, and that we need to deal with it. And that's, when you solve that problem, it's not going to be out in the battlefield. You're not going to be in the press the next day. It's going to be something you're going to commit to, and it's going to take 15 years. It's a winner.
As I hear you, I'm hearing an attorney,
yeah, well,
and a theologically trained one. And I guess I'm struggling a little bit with whose work is this to build those organizational structures. Is this the work of clergy? Or is this the work of the lawyers?
Well, it's not just lawyers. I think it's everybody. You need some lawyers around you. We're not bad people as a whole. And we do offer some technical skills that are important and some experiences that are very important. But this is all about leadership and trying to figure out how you get things recentered and on a path that makes sense. I mean, again, we talked about the LTA, the Land Trust Alliance, rebirth over the last 14 years. And I think that's one of the similar things we need to do here. We've got such a stunningly wonderful faculty here. It's just terrific. And our brand's great, global reach is great, history is great. But we're dealing with a new reality out there that I said a minute ago we're not immune from. And so I think part of our leadership is that we need to be an incubator of solutions to this. I don't have a solution, but we should be figuring out ways that we bring people here short-term, permanently. I mean, leadership course is a great way of kind of getting people moving in this direction, because you're identifying that it's not a particular kind of leadership that's there that we need. But I think, I would love to see us as an incubator space and thinking about how you do it. I have two other issues, not to stop you from answering questions, but one of the things when I was clerk of the session, and that was 20-something years ago at Trinity, which is a wonderful church, wonderful enough we attracted Dave Bartlett. But what I told the session then was, one of the great troubles of the church is that we don't speak to people at their highest and best gifts. We don't ask for that. We're kind of happy with $100 in attendance and with a little bit of help. And God really didn't put us on this world just to put in $100 and attend. He gave you gifts. And I know Nelson Mandela, one of his favorite phrases, according to Andy Young, was, that God didn't put us on this earth to have small dreams. Small dreams don't do anybody any good. And, if you're really responding to faith and to God's gift, well, whatever your greatest talents are, that's where your give should be. That's where your give should be. And so I think we need to do that, because if we don't do that, then we're not relevant to the person, because we're not speaking to his or her heart. We're not speaking to his or her brain. or to their passions. And so if we're not asking for that, they're not going to give it most of the time.
Right.
And in addition to that, it's the faith community, the whatever sense of it is there, it's not going to be relevant to them because it's not relevant. And in this world of hyper stimuli and all of that, they're going to find other places to go to get that. And so that to me is a real problem that we need to solve that's out there.